now that we have our Nametag lanyard base built, we want to do a couple things before we move on. We want to double check our dimensions again, and you can do that just by clicking your shape. And then this middle one, if I hover over it, turns red, tells me it's 3 millimeters tall. If I go touch any of these white squares on the corner, it'll give me the length and depth. So I need to verify that it's 110 millimeters long, 20 millimeters deep. You can use these little black boxes, and those will just give you a single measurement at a time, but either way works. You just want to make sure your measurements are okay. And then now it's time for us to make the opening where our keyring or string or whatever you want to use to tie it on would go. And so that's where these two shapes come in handy. We have a box, which we're not going to use, but these are holes. You can see the transparent when I bring them in. So I'm going to grab a cylinder as well and bring that in. So there's two different things. Obviously we want a round one for this purpose. I'm going to go ahead and click on my square, my cube here, and delete that. But here is my cylinder, and we're going to leave a few measurements alone. I'm going to move mine up just a little bit. The height we will leave at 20 millimeters, so it's fine to leave that alone. There's kind of a cool trick you can use when you cut through things to make sure it really cuts through, and that's the reason I'm going to leave it at 20. And then our length and our depth, I'm going to click the corner, and it'll let me change my depth to 4 and give it a few seconds, and then it will kick over by itself, and I'll change my width to 4 as well. So we do want to make sure that these are the same dimensions. 3 does seem to work, but 4 just seems to make it a little easier for kids to get their string or keyring or whatever through. So alright, so I have 4 millimeters by 4 millimeters and still 20 millimeters tall. So the next step, I'm going to click away, and then now I'm going to do Control A to select all my shapes, or you can draw a box just covering those two things. Doesn't really matter either way. And then I'm going to use the alignment tool. So I can either click that or press the letter L. And now we are back to where we can line things up again. The two things I usually do have my students check is the bottom over here at the bottom right. This shows me that they are still flat on the same work plane. That way the bottom of the cylinder and the bottom of our name tag shape are identically placed on the work plane. I'm going to click the left middle button, and this should make it slide up. So now the hole is perfectly centered this way. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and click the bottom left here. So that's kind of the shape that I'm looking for. This is all the way at the end and just perfectly centered on this side. And I'm going to go ahead and click away, make sure it looks okay. And then I'm going to click at the top just because it's easier, just as long as I make sure I don't click anything where my pink shape from my name tag base is coming through. But I'm going to click this tall skinny cylinder, and then I'm going to nudge it using my right arrow key on my keyboard. I'm going to do that 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That slides it in 4 millimeters. And that way I've got some extra strength back here so my keyring or string doesn't break it out. But you can see that there's still no hole punched through it. I'm going to grab my view cube and spin it around. I can see where the hole would be, but until these shapes are combined you don't really see much of an actual hole placed in there. So I'm going to hit my house button and then zoom back in if I need to. Okay, so I'm going to do Control A again, and then I can group from here by clicking the group button or doing Control G. The one thing I'm in the habit of doing now is I will click this shape, and this is the one time we do want to use the black cone here. So right now the black cone is elevation again, so it's going to let me push it through, kind of like a cookie cutter pushes through cookies. So I'm going to go ahead and click and hold down on this cone, and I'm going to push it down, and you can see over to the right side I am getting some negative numbers. So I'm going to stop when I hit -10. And what that means is it has pushed it 10 millimeters below the work surface of this. So 10 millimeters below the work plane. So I've gone down -10. I'm going to go ahead and let go of my mouse now. And I'm going to use my view cube just to see if it's sliced through. And so see, I can see now my cylinder has pushed through, and it clearly goes through the top and the bottom. So at this point, I'm going to click away. I will do Control A, or you can draw the box again, just as long as it touches both of those shapes. Either way is fine. And then I am going to go ahead and group them. And it usually takes a second or two, but now my cylinder, my whole cylinder disappeared, and I am left with what looks like negative space, but I can't quite tell. So I'm going to use my view cube and spin around, and I can definitely see part of the work plane through here. So I'll zoom in a little bit more. This is a time where it's a little confusing, but if you hold down the Shift key on the keyboard and then you right click, or if you have a Chromebook or MacBook, 2-finger click, you can slide it over and you can move your work plane around, and now I can most definitely see the work plane through here. So that's created the hole and it is punched all the way through. So I'm going to go ahead and click my house and it takes me back to this step. So now I am completely done with my base. It has the hole in it for my keyring or string or whatever I want to put through there, and my name tag base is ready to go for me to build more of my name tag on now.